Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And Mike,
and welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. Haven't said that in a while, Mike. How you doing?
it has been a while. We were just catching up saying the last two recording sessions were in a group or with an interview with Ward Larsen. And before that, I was on with David McCloskey. And then we hung out with our patrons. But one on one, we're back together.
Yeah, I think before Thanksgiving or is that the last time? Yeah,
I guess talking Damascus Station. No, was that
right.
the last full
Yeah,
book?
the
Oh,
last
no,
time.
The Spy Who Came In From the Cold.
Oh, yeah, we did this back. Yeah, so
But that felt like a long time ago because we
yeah,
recorded that one early.
jeez,
Well,
it's
something
been
new
a minute.
today for you, not for me. We haven't yet talked David Slaton and Ward Larsen together on the pod.
And we have not. And this is my second Ward Larson book. I read Assassin's Strike. That was the book for when we first interview Ward, right?
Right, I
That's the one with
think
the drones.
2020.
Yeah, yeah, with the drone stuff. Yeah, but yeah, I haven't. But for reasons I don't really know. Life happens.
Reasons.
Haven't had a chance to catch up with this, but I wanted to make it a point to one. I wanted to be there for the interview with Ward. Very happy to talk to him again, and two, I wanted to read his books because I really liked the first one I read, and I will have to admit this book was a banger.
Yeah.
Like just straight off the like coming off the top rope. This book was so good. I don't know if it had some of the things we talked about with in the interview with him, but it had this familiar vibe of like intersecting plot lines from like some of the best thriller books we've read, and like sort of taking those and running with them in a new approach, a new style, adding in your own character, not just like pure copy one. Obviously, and I'm not saying plagiarism, copy one for one, but like true drawing inspiration from some of the greats out there and putting it your own spin on it. Because inevitably in this genre, this is going to be this plot line, right? The vice president, some top political official is going to take a run at the president to assassinate him, to invoke the 25th Amendment, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't do that in your plot line, then something is, maybe you're waiting to do it. I feel like every single author we've read has done a version of this, correct?
Right. Yeah,
And
that's
it's
the
how well you
thing.
can do that.
It's straightforward. It, like you're saying, it's relatively simple. It's out of, the textbook, the playbook's been written for this. Yet it's so refreshing to have someone like Ward Larson do it because he'll bring in little twists with his aviation background. Of
Right.
course, we're always going to talk to him about that. And it's what makes his books unique and exciting. Then you throw in a really great Mossad trained American killer who works for us, but kind of off the books because he's not an American citizen yet. You throw in all these little quirks, yet you stick to a playbook that's tried and true. And I think that's a recipe for success. And not to rehash a lot of what you already heard in our interview with Ward, but I do want to dig in deeper into a few comments I made. One was, I think before we started recording, I called him Mr. Consistent. I
Yeah,
don't
very true.
expect anything different from Ward. Every book just hits. It's a straightforward, easy to keep up with plot, but at the same time, it is building a web of interesting characters. And the amount of characters we got were just enough to have this whodunit feel that
Right.
elevated the mystery aspect of it all, but it doesn't confuse you. It's not overwhelming. It's just really, really clean and crisp. And the other point I want to rehash, this really feels like Vince Flynn light in the best possible way.
Yeah, I totally agree.
We almost needed just an entertaining read that doesn't make you think all that hard after reading Damascus Station, a heavy book,
Spy
Moscow
Killer,
X,
yeah.
A Spy Who Came In From the Cold. We were reading some real heavy stuff that was touching on other genres. And this just felt, it was calming. It was relaxing. It was enjoyable. It was just so much fun to go back to that Vince Flynn style of storytelling that's done in a way that's accessible to so many readers. I think David Slaton is a great way for a lot of readers to get into the thriller genre if they're not already. And you, this was the first time or second book you read in the series. You could jump in anywhere and not feel behind. Every book stands alone, but then there are nuggets like Jammer Davis coming from Ward's other series, Fly By Wire, knowing his background as a Mossad agent and an operative. And Anton Bloch, his mentor, isn't even mentioned anymore, but once you can see the influences of his training and the people who got him to where he is, it makes the book so much richer. There's so much going on that I love in Ward's writing.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that point, I think like if you dive into his series with this book, it makes you want to, you're not missing anything. At least I don't think you're not missing anything by being introduced to these characters now, but it kind of whets your appetite. Like you want to learn a bit more about the Anna character and Jammer, right? You want to learn a little bit more about how Slaton has gotten to this point with his family. Yeah, he's at almost at like that Mitch Rapp stage, like very very much like similar. Like has a wife, has a kid right now. Obviously, this is his own kid. Has another one on the way. Has a 1 foot in the game, 1 foot out. Can't quite decide what he wants to do. At the very end of this book, he gets offered like the head of Saxog, and is he going to take it? Probably not. Like,
Yeah.
it's an interesting dynamic, and it sort of makes you want to then go back. It makes me want to at least want to go back and read some of the other ones to see
Yeah.
how he got to this point. But I didn't feel like I missed anything, to complete this novel.
And it also felt like it's totally fine that a lot of this has been done before. Like you said, lean into what makes the genre the genre. Lean into the Vince Flynn's and Brad Thor's and people who set the tone. It completely makes sense because it's so unique at the same time. It's a
Yeah.
very different universe, very different fabric. And then throw on that, and let's just actually get to the plot here. Throw on that an opening banger of a scene.
Mm.
Every single thing about that chopper takedown, every last detail of that opening, I loved. Absolutely loved.
Super gripping. Like it hooks you on the edge of your seat from the very first word.
Yes.
Like a novel hasn't done that to me in a long time. Like
Right.
some of these are more slow burns, or we get a quick interaction with our main character that is intriguing, but the action kind of dies down quickly. This was breakneck from the beginning, made me want to turn the page, or in my case, keep listening. At a faster rate. In the beginning, I was listening at 1.5, and I had to bump it up to 2 because I just wanted to get to where we were going. And I do have a comment about the audiobook narrator, but I'll save that for later.
Really?
Or do you want
Okay.
to talk about it
Interesting.
now?
Yeah. I mean, let's get into it because I liked him in the sense that I like the analogy would be the Brad Thor guy. What's his name again?
Armand Schultz.
Armand Schultz. I like Armand Schultz for the Brad Thor books. I think he might be a little standard, a little blah, a little boring for any other series, but I think it works in the Scott Harvath universe. I think this guy, same thing, could come off as a little flat, but in this universe, I'm okay with it for some reason.
I had this weird mixed feeling because there was times where I felt that, like when he was reading Slaton and voicing Slaton, I felt that he did a very good job. Like I like that, but he just had this way of reading lines where every single the way he ended a line, he kind of like had to rhyme it. Like, and I as soon as I picked up on that in my mind, I ran with it. Like it just annoyed the shit out of me. Like the
Really?
entire novel, and I
Hmm.
was hearing it. I don't know. I probably have ruined this for you now. If you go back, and as soon as you recognize it, that I can't even like. But anyways, it's my own like weird earworm things. I try to slow down the speed up the speed, see if it would go away. No, it's just the way this guy talks, and it's when he's
Mm.
doing narration, not when he's doing
A
like dialogue.
character.
When he does
Yeah.
dialogue, it's completely fine. I thought
The
he does,
voices are good, adapting
source
the
and
voices of
yeah,
the
exactly.
characters.
Like doing that stuff. But when there's like a long stretch of dialogue, it's like he feels like he has to rhyme, or the inflections like
Like at the end of the sentence,
are
the
in a
tone goes up.
cadence and it goes up.
Ah, okay.
And I picked up on that. and it drove me nuts. But I could be crazy. I could be a psycho killer, like
Yeah.
weird
No,
person.
I maybe that is one of those things that if you take classes on like public speaking or whatnot, like various teacher trainings have mentioned this. When your tone goes up at the end, it means that you have less confidence because at the end you're trying to like make sure the audience knows what you're talking about.
Yeah,
And yeah,
exactly.
I could see that getting very annoying. One thing I think it was this book I might have picked up on, but kind of worked for me. The action scenes almost went faster.
No, he purposely,
He picked
unlike
up speed.
other narrators, I noticed it more here.
Yeah.
It's probably like things that people do, but here I really noticed like some of the fast action. He's like speed reading,
Yeah.
and
He's
it was kind
getting
of cool.
excited,
Like
which
he
I
gets it.
liked.
Like there was one cliffhanger was like, I'm not the quote guy, but like it's like, and he goes like, and there was a giant bomb. Like he just
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Ward's writing does that though, because he's also very good at the little cliffhangers and he doesn't take himself too seriously when doing them, which I appreciate. Actually, all of this book and all of his writing, I don't think it takes itself too seriously.
no.
And and that's refreshing because those cliffhangers when and then a bomb goes off and then, is he dead or did the person come out the other side? Don't always work for me, but these little ones worked for me of who made the phone call, who was on the other end. When the president recovers, right? She's in the hospital room and she either opens her eyes or squeezes the hand.
Right.
You cut scene right there. So it's not like you're building up to something major, like earth-shattering, but you're giving us a little nugget that we want more of, and then you're cutting it off.
Right.
Like his breaks, his stops at the end of chapters, I think are perfectly timed.
Very good.
You just want
very,
more, and he
very
takes it
Chris
away from you.
Howdy-esque.
It is.
That inner screen channeling his inner screenwriter in him. Yeah.
Yeah, but Chris Howdy's going to have where. Okay, here's the thing. We said it was a very simple ending in some ways. Of course, it was the vice president. Like, duh, that's the low hanging fruit. Who else would want to take over from the president and assassinate them?
I
A
thought for sure
corrupt
it was his
chief of staff
chief of staff.
or the
But
CIA guy,
right. Well, I forget his name, but
Heraclides, the Greek
Heraclides.
name.
Yeah.
I thought it
That
was
cool.
one of
That was
those
a cool
two.
name. There's some like interesting. I love how when authors like pick the names of their characters, but Ward had some like new choices.
Yeah.
Like obviously that I found interesting, like Heraclides. Yeah,
Did we ever get Monk's the backstory? I know we got backstory on him. Did we ever get the backstory of the name?
No, because when we go back to his training, he's just like candidate like 40 something or candidate. We never truly got. If we got his name, it was like once.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just Manchurian, short for
The
Manchurian.
the Manchurian. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, his characters are great. The names are great. It was just enough distinct naming conventions to keep track of who's who, and just enough in terms of balance and pacing, cutting back to somebody. Like right when you might lose track of who the chief of staff is, it cuts to
You
a
cut back
room
to him.
where Gross is in full control, the VP chief of staff, and the actual president, Elaine's chief of staff, is kind of like backbenched and off to the
Right.
side because his guy or his girl is not in power anymore. And so it's very clearly telling you who the power players are, and did just enough with the tapestry of characters to keep me interested, keep me working to figure out who's who. And in the back of my mind, I cleared the VP. I said that to Ward. I said there was a little sleight of hand there because there were a few moments it seemed like I
Right.
should like this guy.
Right.
Like he's actually taking control. He's going to, stabilize America when we needed that leadership and that stability. So I'm like, okay, maybe he is the right guy to do this right now. But then his chief of staff seems scummy. And then Anna getting kicked out of the CIA, she feels a firing coming because this new guy's clearing house. So is he the mastermind of this assassination attempt for his own political gain? And it was just enough to keep me wondering. Obviously, I thought the VP from the beginning, because actually when the plane goes down and when we hear the attack happened, he cuts next scene to the VP and we get a whole chapter with a description of the VP, Lincoln Quarles.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, it can't be him then. Like, that's too easy to
It's
have
too
an
easy.
assassination of the president, then cut to the
And cut
VP
right to
getting
him.
sworn in, and it was him. But then Ward did that. So I really liked how it was simple at the same time as it kept you interested. It was a great
Yeah, I
balance.
mean, sometimes simple is best. Simple is
That's right.
better. You know,
That's
keep
right.
it simple, stupid.
That's right.
Like so.
And that's why it was refreshing, because we just came off some heavy books, like books that are not simple. Moscow X is, woo, that goes deep, man.
And even like Brad's like latest novel and you know Kyle's last novel just had some other overtones of things that we're kind of thinking about, and just to like go into this series, you know, one, not having to worry about the weight of a series finishing, not having to have to tackle. Obviously, there's some geopolitical aspects to this. You know, we mentioned it on the interview with him, but you know, bringing in China, like we don't see this a lot with some of our thriller writers. Going into Taiwan at the very end, like
Yeah.
that was a bold choice.
What'd you think of Hong Kong? Because we had a lot of scenes taking place there. Did you like how Slaton was kind of snooping around? He had this knock, this NOC, right? Non-official, or he had the chauffeur.
Thomas.
Yeah, Thomas / Monk.
So
Great reveal.
I was going to ask you, did you pick up on it that Thomas was Monk? Like when did you pick up on it? Like when he turned, when he shot him in the end, or you
It
know?
was a little earlier than that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
same.
say it was too early though, because
No, for the while I just thought he was this cup, you know, this asset.
yeah, and I thought Ward was trying to make a character we're gonna fall in love with, who might be around for a while.
Sure.
Kind of like
Yeah,
the odd
same.
job guy, right? Like anytime we got to do an op in Asia somewhere, this guy's gonna show up and be your man.
I was
You know,
getting
you
those
can
vibes
use him.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, you can use him for however many books you need, because he was working so well with Slaton. But then as the pieces started to fall into place, I'm like, he was a little too good. Like, he was a
Right.
little too on it, too precise, too perfect. Something had to be wrong. And so I really think I only started realizing once Slaton did. Because he asked a question at one point, but shoveled it, you know, towards the back of his mind. And he kind of put it on the back burner.
Yeah, didn't answer the question. Yeah.
He didn't answer a question. He's like, that's for another time. And then as he's running towards him, thinking he's his getaway, it clicked right at the
Right.
perfect moment. Oh,
Right.
and then how he explains to Sorensen how his buttons didn't line up, so he's not military trained.
Yeah.
Little details like that are just priceless.
Yeah, and I think it shows you how, you know, if you don't have any sort of back history with Slayton, it really develops his character and shows you like how in tune with it, how good of an operator he is.
Yep.
You know, speaking of Hong Kong, I thought, you know, going to this new area, we haven't had a lot of interactions here. I think we've had like Brad's been in this area maybe once or twice. I don't know if Mitch has ever interacted here. I'm trying to remember.
I can't think of a China scene.
But yeah, no, you know, it was cool. A new environment. I felt like we got you know, some pretty nice descriptions of the setting, both in Macau
Yeah.
and in Hong Kong.
Yep.
I think this is a ripe, you know, obviously a lot of different spy movies, action movies, you know, take place in these sort of seedy Macau and Hong Kong, and then like, you know, the back alley with the triads and stuff like that. So it's ripe for this genre, but it doesn't often land. Well, at least in the books we've read, we haven't visited here before, and I thought, you know, it was a nice sort of change of pace.
Yeah, I think you're right. Now, I might have one of my critiques, particularly as we move into the scorecard. Part of the Hong Kong scene, I guess maybe the fire, right? When they start the fire at the house. I just think things got a little jumbled at that point. I really liked when he was setting up the sniper shot initially. And I love the little play of he took the first shot, then missed the second one. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why. The same way, you know, Sorensen and the teams at CIA couldn't figure out, that Monk couldn't figure out, the Trident, you know, and their contact, who we don't know is the VP yet, but their contact can't figure out. And same with me. I was racking my brain, and then it clicked. I was like, he needs him. If he thinks it's a setup, he got ambushed. The only person who would get to reveal the source of who hired the Filipino dudes for the ambush is going to be the one you're trying to assassinate. So when it clicked, it was just fun. It didn't click at first for me. The fire scene, though. So we start the fire, and then they're trying to force him out, and Monk's there at the exact same time because he got hired now to come back for the kill to finish the job that he wasn't able to do or wasn't able to get Slaton to do. And again, maybe this is just me. You can't really see much in a fire. So I have some experience in the volunteer fire service. And man, so many writers or movies, they just have people walking around, the building's burning. It seems like they're taking their sweet time. They're just doing what they got to do. You can identify people. You can look for weapons. You can pick things up. You can walk around. No way, man. Once those things are ripping, no absolute friggin' way. You can't breathe. You're sucking for air. You're knocked out in a few seconds. Like the fire academy, man. They put us in a room and said, we're just going to burn one wooden pallet. And then you got to take your mask off. And literally within like 30 seconds, we're all just dying, gasping for air. So the way some of these books just have people romping through a fire and having conversations, it's one of my pet peeves. So I got to say, I lost some buy-in score right there.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I will say like the fact that I was bought in all the way up to the point where he's in this fire and he has like I guess he has a mask so he can like breathe, but how is he able to see like some ammo and then use that ammo to make a hot mic? And
No.
I feel like all this stuff is like, is that so quick intuition thinking that would happen in the middle of a fire?
You have
Meanwhile,
seconds.
you're trying to, and then these guys upstairs, they're refusing to come downstairs. But wouldn't they be so like the smoke would have forced them to, either pass out or just want to get relief, 100%. Right?
Or not even be able to move, right? Like you can't go room to room very easily. Like, it's, right. Yeah, they would have been flushed out way earlier.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's all like a convenient, if you had to pick apart at the cracks of like how Slaton is going to get his mark without, one, killing him, without having Monk, in the interaction, like it was a perfect setup for that. Does it check out physics wise? Probably not. But some of the things were kind of, funny and cool about it. Like the fact
keeps
that
the plot moving.
Yeah, he takes out the guy and he can't fit into the suit, but it doesn't it doesn't matter because no one can see. Like he gets like some of those details like correct.
Yeah.
And at that point I'm just like, all right, I want to just get to know how he's going to get to the vice president, how he's going to like, so I wasn't really but now that I like think back on it, it like kind of irks me a little bit. But yeah, I can definitely see why, especially with your background, why that would lose some buy-in points from you.
And some other part, maybe the bigger overarching issue here is really how much I'm bought into the Trident. It unfortunately, I wouldn't say it was as bad as Legion in Oath of Loyalty, but we've built up something that in the last book, at least, and I don't know if you.
I have no experience with the last book.
Yeah.
So you'd be the only one that could speak to what the Trident really means.
So not really, because it was hinted at. Assassin's Edge, and I don't want to spoil it for you because it's definitely worth reading. Like from Assassin's Strike to Assassin's Edge is just back-to-back bangers. It's really good, and there's this huge false flag operation and massive geopolitical consequences, like fallout on the scale of US-Russia nuclear war possibly around the corner, in a way that you buy, right? In a way that is realistic and insane. But we learn the false flag operation was set up by the Trident. And that's pretty much it. That literally the Chinese were behind it. And that's like, dang, we just did a Russia book. Boom, we're going into a China book. So we didn't know much about the Trident. We knew it was three Chinese officials doing something. We do get a description here that they're on the outs with the CCP. Like I thought that was a good explainer of why they're not actually that badass or doing much. They were kind of kicked to the curb. So they were kind of excluded from party leadership and real authority, and they just had to go into the private enterprise and try to lay low, essentially. Hence why you're in Macau, doing shady shit. So I like that. It was okay, but maybe I wanted a little bit more out of these guys. Like, what are they still doing after being so powerful in the last book? What are they still doing now to give them power besides assassinating the US president, which they really weren't even doing. So I just think I wanted to see a little bit more of what they were doing before I'm really bought into this mission of we have to kill them. The VP has to get a super assassin to go after them. And maybe Slaton felt that way too, being pulled from his family, kind of like, why the hell do I have to go do this? I think Slaton felt that way too, of like, is this really that big a priority? Am I going to risk my life and, time with my family, or even the chance to return to my family for this? And I was asking the same question. Were these guys worth it? These schmoes?
I think it's more so like an overreaction from
Quarles,
the vice president,
because he wanted to clean up his contacts, the people.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to tie up the loose ends.
Yeah.
Quicker than probably needed. He probably could have just let Trident play out as this villain and sort of, I don't know. You could have done a lot with them instead of like just immediately trying to, because they didn't own too much leverage over him. They obviously didn't know who he was. I mean, they said that you could deduce who it was, but like if you don't actually have the information of it, then you can't prove shit. So yeah, now that I think about that, it's like the Trident could have been a 3-book arc.
It really could have. Yeah, I would have been okay with that.
So.
And then them hanging something over the head of the VP. If we weren't going to wrap this book up that way, you could have played out that a little longer.
Yep. Totally agree.
Well, we covered a lot of stuff. If we didn't think the whole fire action sequence scene was like our favorite, I got to say a nice middle ground, because the first action scene, absolute, perfectly done. The golf shot, the assassination on the golf shot right in between was just also perfect. Like very, very smart.
That was a cool scene.
We talked about that with Ward, so we said it already, but damn, it's genius. It's genius.
That and, like the final action scene where we go back to this house, this abandoned house that Slaton sort of staked out, and his final altercations with Monk. I thought that scene was kind of cool. Yeah. Again, there's this thing that happens when, maybe it's just because I listen to audiobooks, but when like readers, you're in this like fast cutting action that's written on the page, and then they're trying to do their own thing to like add suspense, and some things can get like kind of jumbled. And I always think back to the oil like refinery scene between Grisha and Mitch. Like things are happening so fast that like you can't, if you don't have a visual, it's kind of like hard to like comprehend what is actually going on the page.
And the writing got over detailed in the Mitch and Grisha scene. I think Kyle wanted to put so much detail to make it feel like you were there, but it was over detailed to the point of I didn't know what the hell was going on at one point.
So I felt a little bit of that here, where I'm like, as soon as the RPG hits, it's like, what the hell's going on? But ultimately with the glass, and cool. Him knowing that he's safe, and like the 2 bullets, like that scene was pretty cool. So
I thought that was cool. I'm just wondering why Monk didn't see it. He would have known the same thing about the glass.
Yeah, I have no idea how you could. I think back to, what did I recently watch? Where they try? Oh, Mission Impossible. I rewatched Ghost Protocol or Rogue Nation. Anyways, they get somebody to like fall down in to an area, and it's like it's a glass box, and they lock them in, and so it just reminded me of that.
You need that suspension of disbelief sometimes. Yeah, and I'm okay with that in limited quantities for this book because I'm having fun with it.
And what did you think of the drone, like the unmanned drone that they hitch a ride on the way out with? That was kind of cool.
Again, pretty cool, and that's a Ward Larsenism. Yeah. It really is. He's got to have stuff like that.
Some cool, something that's not even on the books yet. Concept art essentially.
Yep. Although he gave me enough, like I wouldn't have needed more. The Kevlar drones using the Kevlar webbing and rope to take down Marine One. That was enough for me. That one did it so well. If that was all the tech we got in the book, I was fine with it. I love that. I thought that was so creative. In a business that is so saturated with ways to kill people, and that like the creative energy that's been put into that. Think of all the hours that authors have collectively put into coming up with cool ways to kill people, particularly very protected people like the president. That was among one of the cooler and more creative ways. It
Yeah. Had
it
never
just
thought of
shows
that
the
before.
boundless, creativity of some people.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
There's a couple of things we're missing, but I think maybe we'll talk about them during the scorecard. And particularly one we kind of have to, I guess, for good guys, is Jammer Davis. So
Mm,
there's a couple of scenes, especially with his family and the Canada stuff. Maybe we just get into that as we go through the scorecard,
sure.
cover some loose ends.
Sounds good.
So since we did action and we really did the general overview of the plot, where are you putting action and plot, the most important two scores on the scorecard?
I think I'm gonna go ooh, like an 8.5 for action and an 8 for the plot. Some solid stuff. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I think 8 is fair on the action. Some things were a 10. Some things were
Yeah,
a
exactly.
6,
Like
6,
if
7.
I was to rate it off of the opening scene, it would be a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
But
Plot, surprisingly, in my mind, I thought I'd be lower than action just because it was so simple. But I was able to access it and enjoy it because of that. So I think I'm also going to go 8 with you. It was
okay.
a great plot,
Yeah.
had me interested. Some of Ward's plots, I think, have been a little bit more well developed, well fleshed out. But I actually want to give it credit for being simple. So I'm okay
Right.
with that because it made for a very nice, clean read. So I think an 8 really captures the good and the bad.
Oh, you bought into the story. What you're buying?
Dude, I was really bought in.
I was too. I might go 5 on buy-in. I don't know if that's too high. I thought, it's one, you just said it's a very intricate new way of coming up with this idea, how to, take something and innovate it and make it believable. If I had to ding it and like bring it down to a 4.5, it would be, some of the things you mentioned at the end, like the wrapping up of the story, the conveniencies, the fire stuff, the him and Monk's interaction at that house. So maybe it doesn't quite deserve that perfect 5, but it's close to it with a 4.5.
Yeah, I obviously dinged it as we talked about. I don't think I'm going to go down a full point because it wasn't enough to make me not care about the story. It was doing just enough, even with a few plot holes, where I was okay with, like I said, that suspension of disbelief. So I'm going to go 4.5 with you then.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I could have gone a little lower, but I don't need to ding it. I was having a good time. Now, bad guys. I mentioned a quarrel with the Trident. Thought they
Yeah.
were good, not great. We didn't see much of them. But then if you pick Monk, and particularly early on, again, first half of this book, I don't know why I was vibing with it a little bit more than the second half. Laszlo and Magda, the two operatives that Monk uses and assassinates
I
in the
really
plane.
like them. Yeah,
I
I knew they weren't long for the story, but they were intriguing.
Same. I knew they were pawns, and when he pushed her out the plane and killed them on the plane, I was like, it makes sense. So I'm going to go 4. I think that point is because of the Trident not really being as fully fleshed out as I would have hoped. I guess you could take the VP and him as a bad guy as well, which kind of works. That was satisfying. So I think I'm going to go 4 on all that because I did like Monk. I did like the earlier bad guys. And I thought the idea of a whodunit, anyone could have been a bad guy throughout
Sure.
the story, really worked for me.
I have to agree with you. For all those same points, I liked Monk as it's like if you wanted to give him the big bad. Quarrels, I can't like give it super high points. He's good, intriguing, but again, it's like we've kind of mentioned, it's the obvious pick. But he's still an interesting character. Yeah, so 4 it is.
Yeah.
What about the good guys though?
Good guys have to be a 5 for me.
Yeah,
I mean, clear winner of this book besides the helicopter scene, and not to steal it if you were going to say one of these two, but the two winners for me is the helicopter scene and Jammer Davis. What he does for Davy and Christine just to protect Slayton and let him do what he's got to do knowing they're safe, and how Slayton called him in with some back channel protocol and even alerted his wife to what was going to happen with their back channels. I just thought it was a lot of fun. So all the good guys, from Anna running cover for him at the CIA, giving him the tools he needs, Jammer coming in, protecting his family, taking them up to Canada in the seaplane. Great cast of characters. It makes me want a little more of the old school David Slaton characters, because there were some people earlier in his life who were awesome. But I think Jammer is doing what he's got to do.
Yeah, I really liked Anna. I'm intrigued by her character and this idea that she might become the VP in the future, going forward. Obviously, I would love to read more about Jammer Davis. I thought that, even like the Asian hooker that he saves,
Oh yeah,
like those scenes with him and then her
the
sister
doctor, the
were
dentist,
with the oral
half
surgeon,
dentist.
the half oral surgeon,
That was funny.
were
A little
interesting.
comedic relief there.
Yeah. So, I think like, and then this is my first interaction with Slayton, so I got to rate him in the good guys too. So, or like my first time talking about him on the pod. I think he's a very intriguing character, sort of this almost like a man without a country at the moment, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
he's
Mm-hmm.
not American, doesn't seem to be associated with Israel anymore. So yeah, it's a 5 out of 5 for this book.
Yeah, the good guys shine, as they usually tend to.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder what the last book was we didn't give a 5 on the good guys. And sometimes, maybe like a Brad Thor book, where sometimes his random cast of characters, they just kind of put the gang together, doesn't really land, where a lot of times with Brad it does. I feel like we've had a few where it doesn't. And I think you could tell by our good guys score if that book is seriously going to be among our favorites,
Right.
or if it's going to be just middle of the pack. I think once
Yeah.
you start going 4 or 3 for good guys, it's
It's not a
clearly,
good sign.
yeah, that book is probably going to be in the 30s. Setting. Couple of ways you can go with this. How do you lean for setting?
Um, you know, like when I think of like a high score for setting, I think of like a memorable, like did the author take me to that place and like vividly describe it and like I could visualize it. And don't want to say it wasn't bad, but it definitely isn't the best I've seen.
Yeah.
So I can't give it that perfect score. I don't know, like a 3.5, 3. I don't know. What are you thinking?
I think you're right, but I have to go a little bit higher for 2 reasons. 3
Okay.
reasons. One, on the Potomac or Anacostia off Haynes Point,
No,
when the
he
chopper
does
goes
get that
down,
very well. He does get DC very well.
that was a lot of fun. Second point, actually the golf course, because you and I could picture that very well. That was a clear one to visualize. But also the Hong Kong taking the shot, kind of up on this like sewer bank, and it felt stormy and it was raining, and he sets up this makeshift sniper's tent. And then when he parachutes down that hill, I
Right. That was
couldn't,
kind of cool. And then he falls into the
like a
reservoir, then has to
ravine,
get
yeah, in the
out. Like
reservoir.
that.
Yeah.
That was cool. Maybe I'm going too little too low, but
No, I think that scene though is hard to place because we don't have a specific knowledge of it.
sure.
It's not like everybody knows the name of this reservoir in Hong Kong and can picture that one.
Yeah.
But what Ward did well was allow us to picture a generic one, or what it would be if we were up on this hill looking through this apartment complex into the window. So I feel like it was hard to make perfect, but for what you needed to do, it was done very well.
Right. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't do it perfectly because it's not a well-known, objectively well-known place. And then third, I have to give it some cred. Again, can't go perfect, but I have to give it some cred because of Canada. I think Davy wanting to fly the seaplanes, and then they had to go fly the plane to get a signal in a nearby town. The remote wilderness, I was getting hints of Wolf Trap, the Connor
Yeah,
Sullivan
even
book, or
even the
Sleeping
brief
Bear.
descriptions of Canada that we get with those, quick Davy and his wife. What's his wife's name
And
again?
Christine.
Christine and Davy. Like I mean, and maybe it's just again, it's because I've been there and or I haven't been to Canada, but I've been to like Upper Montana and
And
like
he got it right.
I'm imagining like those areas and the way he was describing it, like it brought me back there, and
Yeah.
maybe that's why I didn't connect too much to this description of this Hong Kong town. I was just imagining like, someplace in, I guess it has to be a little more hill. I was imagining like San Francisco for some reason. Um,
Yeah, I get that. I could see that. A
like,
very crowded.
yeah, like a crowded area.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess it deserves like a four.
Yeah, I think I was gonna go 4.5, but I'll agree it's not done perfectly. You got to remember that DC scene early on though, and even
Yeah,
the White House scenes are great.
yeah.
Those scenes are really good too. I wouldn't say it's transfer of power level, but
No,
they're
but it's pretty
good.
good. Yeah.
It's pretty good. So I think a 4 is good. Cover. I love
Dude,
it. I love it.
I really like the cover too.
I really like it.
Oh,
And
you
you know
gotta go
what?
five.
I'm
You gotta go
going 5.
five.
It almost has, it's almost cartoony. It's so funny because it's like Ward's books. He's doing something we love in the Vince Flynn style, which could be incredibly technical and really deep. But it's almost like a light version. Like I said it before, Vince Flynn light. Look at Anna Sorensen, Irene Kennedy light. Look at Jammer Davis. He's Scott. Scott.
I don't know if he would appreciate that.
You know what? No, I think he would, just because, again, I don't think he takes himself too seriously. Like to do what Vince Flynn did and create a Mitch Rapp and create that universe, like that's shooting for the stars. So I think to do that in your own way, that doesn't take itself too seriously, that doesn't need to try to recreate a Clancy, or like you can describe airplanes as well as Jack Carr can describe guns,
Sure.
and yet you do it in an accessible way. Like you got to admit, Jack Carr's technical and gearhead talk sometimes could turn off a reader, especially, someone, the laity like you or I. Every time Ward talks about airplanes, it's like I want to sit down at his feet and just listen. Like I wish he was
Yeah,
a professor, on this stuff. So like making it a light version that's accessible to the masses, I think is a good thing. So sorry, Ward, if you take that as an offense, but Vince Flynn light, to me, is just a great description, and it makes your books fantastic. So 5 for the cover. The reason I say all that with the cover is it almost comes off as cartoonish. There's something about it that has like a oversimplified, like it's just this yellow and blue. Like it's almost oversimplified, but again, like the rest of the book, I'm fine with that.
Mm.
The target on the
I will say-
helicopter there doesn't have to be some super detailed radar target making you think this is Tom Clancy. It's just some like generic clip art looking target, but it works.
I will say the cover fits the book.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yes.
Is it my favorite cover? No, so I can't give it a 5. But I don't know. It's a solid 4.
It's playful.
It's yeah.
But it relates too. Let's judge the cover by the book. This is just screaming those opening scenes of the transfer of power.
I
Marine
love that,
one
dude.
down.
It just something about it.
Really? All right, I'm going 5.
That's the entire series is that, and that's he's been consistent like that. Because I've seen all of his cover art that he puts out there. So
Mr. Consistent, absolutely.
Yeah.
I like
it. Who's your you got to pick either Jammer or who was the other person you said?
Less a person, more of just the opening sequence, just bringing down the chopper with the drones. So I could pick either of those. So I want to hear your winner.
I was going to pick Anna. I thought she was like the secret winner of this book. I thought, she's pretty ballsy. She takes her new boss head on, pretty much discovers the entire plot on her own, has this great relationship with the real president, so much so at the very end she gets offered the vice presidency, and invokes this feeling of for me nostalgia with Irene Kennedy, like I like her a lot, and I want to read more about her. So for me, it's Anna. Anna's my winner for this book.
Dude, I love that. Since I already said 2, let me give a runner up. The president's husband. When dude gets the shot on the VP, gets the chance to take him out.
That was great.
And when he's at the hospital and even tracks down, I think it was Markowitz, the chief of staff, and convinces him to come back, and who he brings into the plot. He's like that gatekeeper for his wife in the hospital. I just thought was a really cool little role to write in. And the way when the president wakes up, or we hear that she's conscious, but they're keeping it under wraps. I thought was a really cool plot device that worked. In fact, I kind of forgot about that. Makes me want to up my score on plot a little bit here, to be honest with you. Can I do that? I forgot how much I really enjoyed the president in the hospital coming back, yet knowing there's a mole.
And not wanting
Yeah.
anyone to know about it because there's a mole.
Yeah.
That's an interesting detail.
That actually made the plot a lot deeper. And that little twist really, I thought, brought some complexity. So I'm going to just bump up my plot to 8.5. It wasn't sitting right with me this whole time. I thought 8 felt a little low when I gave it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that puts you at a 44 and me at a 43. We're pretty even. We like this book. It's one of the better ones we've read. So
absolutely.
Definitely recommend anyone out there to pick up a copy of this book. Or if you're a completist, start the series. This is what, book 9, right?
9 plus a novella, Assassin's Dawn. And actually, Chris, that's a novella, so you can rip through that pretty quick, and it gives the origins of David Slaton and being Mossad trained. Yeah.
I'll check that out.
That's a good quick read.
Yeah, and go check out our interview with Ward talking about the book. And you've had the chance to talk to him, what? This is your 4th time talking to him?
Yeah, Assassin's Strike. And then I think Assassin's Edge and Assassin's Dawn. I think I talked about both of those with him. So,
and his one-off.
Oh yeah, Deep Fake, dude. Did you read that one?
I think you might have. I didn't. So you might have talked to him 5 times.
Oh no, you know what? I think we did Edge and Dawn at the same time because they came out the same year.
Gotcha.
So this was the 4th time because we put those 2 together. Dude, I like everything he's putting out. I really do. I like everything he's putting out there. He deserves so much more recognition. He deserves to blow up. I'll be honest with you. Just
I 100% agree.
Sky high. Yep. Deep Fake was awesome standalone. Dude, fantastic book.
All right, that's the book. So next time we will be bringing you. We're gonna go back to Brad Thor, right?
It's Brad Thor time. Got to
do it. Blacklist, baby.
Blacklist. Let's go. And that will allow us to kick off the new year with our Brad Thor first half recap.
Yes,
that'll be good.
Yes. And there was something else we were thinking about doing in the works.
Yeah, it got delayed a little bit. Couple of scheduling issues, but we want to cover the whole Sons of Valor series, 1, 2, and 3. We want to bring back Andrews and Wilson. We had to push it off a little bit, but I think between doing some Brad Thor stuff, covering Sons of Valor, that's going to take us like pretty much through January. So sometime in the near future, you and I, Chris, will have to sit down and make our first half reading list of 2024. I really want to be able to post that around Christmas time for the folks to bring in the new year, knowing what books are coming. We've got a couple of suggestions from our patrons. We're going to get our patron book club up and going again, round number 2 in the springtime. So we'll have to sit down and make that schedule of our 2024 to be read list.
124. Yeah, and I think it might be fun to record over the next 2 or 3 weeks and a recap of 2023. Maybe we'll pick out go back and highlight, because we jumping around from podcast to pod. We have the 3 feeds now. Maybe highlight some of the books we like, some of the episodes we really enjoyed, just to give them a little New Year's treat, or pre-New Year's treat.
I like that. A year in review.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a great idea. Let's do it.
All right, guys. We need to thank our patrons, our special operator, Sherry F., our special agents, Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Oh, and shout out to Sherry for those awesome shirts, which we all are wearing for our talk about The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. Please subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform. You can find us at thrillerpod.com or on Twitter and Instagram at thrillerpodcast. And as always, just let Slaton be Slaton.